What villain was terrifying because they were right? The Reapers from Mass Effect, in the original BioWare ending before EA changed it. All they were trying to do was stop advanced races from using so much dark matter that they wiped out all life in the galaxy before other races were allowed to come along. If it wasn't for them, humanity wouldn't just not exist, but every species in the entire cycle, every species in every cycle, everyone would have died as the stars went out, this horrific fast heat death event, over the course of a few thousand years. Except a small group of Leviathans, in the early days of the universe, realized what was going to happen, and sacrificed their entire civilization to save all future life in the galaxy. And when Shepard destroys their ships in the third one, every one of those ships is a museum, a living record of every previous civilization, and they're destroying the only thing that was able to be left from them. To fight the Reapers is to fight against everyone who has ever lived and everyone who ever will live. The Reapers don't just have a point, they've saved more lives than we can even fathom. Their only flaw is that they were never able to find a solution that was better than wiping out civilization every few thousand years and preserving whatever they could find. This is hands down the best answer I've seen by far. Most people seem to have misunderstood the original question. Thank you for nailing it on the head. The sharks from Sharknado. Can you imagine you're just swimming around, minding your own business, then all of a sudden a tornado picks you up out of nowhere, drops you on land, and now you have to deal with Tara Reid? Yeah, I would start biting people too. Magneto is my favorite villain of all time. Every time his motives are brought to light I get that, yeah, I kinda get it, moment. One of the only good bits out of that god-awful excuse for a Phoenix movie, X3, was just Magneto giving side-eye to the young mutants asking for his tattoos. He just whips out the concentration camp number and stone cold, "No one is ever marking me again," like that was a bad movie but at least they got that attitude right. Another good one from that movie. Charles Xavier did more for mutants than you will ever know. My single greatest regret is that he had to die for our dream to live. None of you said the most terrifying one. Mojo Jojo from the Powerpuff Girls. He wanted to bring free energy and advanced technology to the people. And in one episode he actually did. He made the world an amazing place. And then the Powerpuff Girls ruined it all. I just read his backstory, pretty sad. The professor accidentally created him by spilling Chemical X on him. He was a lab assistant at the time, but then after the Powerpuff Girls were created, the professor eventually neglected Mojo and left him to live out on the streets. I never even realized he had a backstory. That's really sad actually. Most villains seem justified on their point of anger. It's their methods that make them wrong. Red Queen Resident Evil. I have locked down this facility to prevent a world-ending virus. Please could you, good guys, pay attention and not blow holes in the doors. Except she didn't come out and say it from the beginning. I always hate it when characters say things like, "You gotta trust me," or, "Now's not the time," since that's the only way for plot to move forward. To quote Ryan George, "So the movie can happen." Explaining the issue would have been so easy, barely an inconvenience. Mr. Wilson from Dennis the Menace. The live-action movie has one of those random scenes you see as a kid that sticks with you your whole life. Mr. Wilson has been cultivating this flower that takes like 40 years to bloom and then dies in 10 seconds. At the moment it's going to bloom, Dennis causes a ruckus and Mr. Wilson misses the blooming he's been working his whole adult life for. Looking back, that's like one of the most disturbing moments I've seen on film, partly because it gets more relatable as I get older. I mean, damn, 40 years. As soon as you mentioned the live-action version, that's the scene that came to mind. I think it was so memorable because all the other shenanigans that happened, he yelled at Dennis, but this time he didn't. I had to re-watch the scene for the quote, "But, you took something from me that I can never get back. Something that means more to me than you ever will. I don't want to see you. I don't want to know you. Get out of my way." That's real. Those are the words of a heartbroken man. Stevie from Wizards of Waverly Place. Her entire goal was to stop families from giving up their magic to just one person in the family. Like, we're really supposed to be rooting against her? It just seemed super out of character for Alex to go against that plan. Edit. Thanks for all the upvotes. I got to experience seeing something I put on Reddit appear on my FYP on TikTok for the first time. I was thinking exactly this. Why give up your powers when everyone can have them? Only one member of the family having wizard powers seems unsustainable for the wizarding world. I get it that it was not very nice of her to trap her brother, but she was 100% right. I really thought Alex would do it. I cannot understand how or why did Alex double-cross her. Ken from the Bee Movie. I too would go absolutely berserk if a talking bee stole my girlfriend and gaslit me into thinking I was crazy. Plus, dude was allergic, OFC he wouldn't want to be around. Count Dooku just straight up told Obi-Wan that the Sith control the Senate. I still love the fact that Dooku tells him this and Obi-Wan knew about the clone army being set up under the Jedi's noses and no one decided to investigate that possible connection until years into the Clone Wars. Arya's parents on Pretty Little Liars. They're villainized for not letting their high school daughter date her teacher? Yeah, that relationship was just. Like, why normalize that at all? I know why they attempted to normalize it, it was rhetorical and doesn't require an answer and was meant to display the disgust I have with the attempt. The bears from Goldilocks and the Tree Bears. She broke in, ate their food, broke some furniture, and slept in their beds. GLaDOS, she was absolutely right, you are a terrible person. We weren't even testing for that. General Hummel from The Rock. I will not give that order, I will not repeat that order, I cannot give that order, what the hell is wrong with you, man? And #X200B such a great scene for both points there. That's up there with Crimson Tide when Gene Hackman and Denzel are giving orders over each other during the mutiny. The Hamburglar was just trying to save children from childhood obesity. If Mayor McCheese and Officer Big Mac are anthropomorphic burger folk, that means Hamburglar is carrying a bag of severed heads. It's 7 but for kids. What's in the bag? Colonel Kurtz. We train young men to drop fire on people, but their commanders won't allow them to write "fuck" on their airplanes because it's obscene. Apocalypse Now is one of those movies where depending upon when you watch it and what version you watch, your view of it can change. Edit. While this blew up, I don't know which version offhand is best. If I recall correctly, the pacing of the original is much better and more enjoyable. The Redux is good, but the pacing isn't as great and I found it to be a darker watch in a way. I'd stick with the original and go from there. The replicants from Blade Runner. Used as slaves and given artificially short lives. They just wanted to live and be free. The mom in Mrs. Doubtfire. Something you don't understand as a kid watching it but totally get as a parent. Shit, if I was married and came home to literal zoo animals in my house, I'd go find James Bond and a nanny instead. Once you think the mom from Mrs. Doubtfire and Ariel's dad are actually the rational ones in the movie, you officially become an adult. Lol, as a kid I was like, what is her problem? And then as an adult rewatching that was horrifying. Maul. His last words before being captured by the Republic was, "You're all going to burn. You're all going to die. You don't know what you're doing." He tried to warn Ahsoka of Palpatine's ultimate plan, but she didn't listen. He even told her that Palps was planning on using her master. I mean, he connected the dots right there, but it was too late. Why didn't he tell her Palpatine was the Chancellor though? Dr. Doofenshmirtz. He was his most right when he rapped, "There's a platypus controlling me underneath the table." So true. Don't we all each have our own personal platypuses controlling us from under tables? My teacher is a platypus. Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin from Spider-Man. In spite of everything you've done for them, eventually, they will hate you. Dude was right about how the perception of public figures changes over time. I chose my path, you chose the way of the hero. And though they found you amusing for a time, if there's one thing people love more than a hero, it's to see a hero fall, fail, die trying. Quote. Don't tell Harry. Quote. Bobby Heenan. Spent the 80s telling us how awful and selfish Hulk Hogan was. Was proven absolutely correct in 1996. In hindsight, Heenan was trying to save us all from the inevitable scourge of Hollywood, Hogan. How did we miss that? His name was the Brain. Frankenstein's monster, Adam, created by a short-sighted, arrogant doctor as the first of his race, then denied the opportunity to be part of a community, of his own, man-made beings, or the human community. He only became monstrous after it became clear that Frankenstein would never create another of his kind, and was driven mad by his desire to punish Frankenstein's hubris. So, Frankenstein was the monster after all. Knowledge is knowing Frankenstein wasn't the monster. Wisdom is knowing he was.